Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the disintegration of the Tory party during this general election campaign as another Tory MP defects, to Reform UK this time. The Conservatives also admitted to accidentally sending an email that's critical of Tory candidates to those candidates. And Tory MPs are tearing their hair out at the utter incompetence of this campaign. I mean, you would think that when the election was finally called, the Tories would at least put on a show of unity for a few weeks in order to make the best of it, wouldn't you? You know, they were at the moment before the election was called, it was like, we've sort of got time to change the leader. Is that the right decision? In and ahhing, and ahhing. As soon as the election's called, it's like, right, we're stuck with Sunak, definitely. We need to swing behind him. But no, the opposite seems to be happening. There are various polling analysts warning, as I have, that the polls could be flattering Labour a little bit due to a few factors. Yes, Labour are going to win, and they're going to win well, but the Tory wipeout is not as assured as some people think. There are issues with the polling this year due to the weird nature of lots of factors, not the least of which is, Reform UK having an inflated place in the polls. Yet the Tories seem to be doing as much as anyone to help make the current polling a reality. On Friday, after a disastrous election announcement and then a catastrophic first 2 days of campaigning, the Daily Mail published an article online with the headline, "Is there a double agent in CCHQ?" Now, of course, being the Daily Mail, they couldn't even get this right. A double agent would be someone who really was on the side of the Tories but pretending otherwise. What they actually mean is just a straightforward agent. But the sentiment is that the Tory campaign is so bad that it actually seems easier to suppose there are Labour and Lib Dem agents running CCHQ than it's simply been down to the most successful political party in British history paying large sums of money to employ imbeciles who couldn't organise an election campaign in a Welsh brewery. Then we had the grand announcement of national service, the second attempt to persuade the country that what we need is a slave labour economy after David Cameron's big society idea flopped 10 years ago. Sunak should have known he was onto a loser when he couldn't even get the bulk of right-wing commentators on board with it. In fact, yesterday we had the bizarre sight of Steve Baker criticising the plan as not having had ministerial approval. Why is this bizarre? Steve Baker's been chuntering for years. Because for years he's been a backbencher, but he's not now. He's a minister. Ministerial responsibility requires that you keep your views to yourself when discussing government policy. To have a minister effectively say that it was just made up without any real consultation, even with ministers, is not a good look. And yet that was small fry. Yesterday we had the news that the Conservatives had built up a bit of a list of Tory candidates that they thought were being a bit lazy, not getting behind the campaign, not getting on message, although I'm not really sure what the message is supposed to be. In some cases, not even going out and about door knocking. They then sent this email out to the very people it was criticising. Embarrassing. I mean, you might get one cock-up like this happening every now and then. I mean, I'm sure we've all worked for an organisation where an email got sent out to the wrong people and everyone hit the panic alarm. It's down to human error. Every organisation employs a few idiots or careless people or just people who are a bit frazzled because of something going on and they get distracted. So yeah, every now and then there will always be an embarrassing cock-up like this. But several times a day, and during the election campaign, which is supposed to be very carefully planned out months in advance. And I almost missed the way this unfolded with going out last night, we had a defection. And true to form, it was also a chaotic defection. Tory MP Lucy Allen had backed a Reform UK candidate. So of course she had the party whip withdrawn. Great, CCHQ must have thought, that's another candidate we've got to find now on top of the 150 others. Unless she'd already stepped down, I don't know. But remember, the deadline's just over a week. It's like the end of next week. That's it. All the candidates have to have been chosen. I'm going to talk more about that, I think, later today. But then Alan said, no, you can't take the whip off me because I'd already quit. So in the last dying days of what is definitely the worst parliament of my lifetime, maybe ever, Reform UK suddenly have 2 MPs. And then Zach Goldsmith, who was sacked for attacking the Privileges Committee over its investigation into Boris Johnson, he decided to stick his gilded boot in as well, saying that Sunak had damaged the party beyond repair. Now, this is not true, of course. It's his mate Boris Johnson who damaged the Conservative Party beyond repair. Remember that Boris Johnson was losing safe Tory seats in by-elections long before Sunak had anything to do with it. He was even losing them before Partygate. In fact, I can't remember who, I'm afraid, but I saw someone say something similar. It was something like, that it's Boris Johnson who crashed the ship, not Sunak. It's just that Sunak was no good at saving the party from an already sinking ship. But that is not to say Sunak bears no responsibility for this. At the start, when I said you'd think the party would at least unite for the election, but haven't, there's a sense in which part of the Tory party never would. I've said for months, the far right want to lose the election, and they want to lose it badly. Sounds mad, but the worse the losses, the more representation they get after the election, perversely. That is because they represent a greater number of the very safe seats. I mean, some of these crazy people like Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, Priti Patel, they're too insane to be able to win a marginal seat. So the only way you can get loonies like that into the party is to give them safe seats. So the loonies are concentrated in the very safe seats, which means if you strip away the vulnerable seats, they form a larger percentage of the Tories left. So if they want to challenge the One Nation Tories numerically after the election, they need carnage. Obviously, they don't want to be seen as responsible for the scale of defeat, so they need to be a bit subtle. This is why Sunak ultimately never was deposed. The ones on the far right with functioning brains realised that the game was up anyway, and if they did replace him with one of their own, they would get the blame for the election defeat. They want this to be all on Sunak and the moderates of the party who selected him. But it also means it's in their interest to do very badly in the election itself. So they were always going to subtly sabotage the campaign. But right now, they don't even need to, do they? Reminds me a little bit of Northern Ireland politics at the moment, because the DUP have been doing their best to make the case for reunification. So Sinn Féin have been largely sitting back and taking a chill pill. Same applies here. Team Sunak cannot even get the simplest things right. And so there are various people and groups within the Conservative Party who are responsible for the mess they're in. Sunak is one of them. He's just not someone who was too weak to stop the damage caused by others. He's done plenty of damage himself. But Tories being Tory, every single one of them just wants to blame someone else. They're all responsible, though. Johnson is responsible for forcing the Conservatives to back the most ridiculous form of Brexit, thus ensuring that no brains could ever grace cabinet again. Truss is responsible for destroying their reputation for fiscal responsibility. The One Nation Tories are responsible for doing nothing over a decade ago about the obvious UKIP entryists in their party. Appeasement. Oh, one more bit of appeasement, then they'll all settle down. The far right in the party are responsible for burning down the bridges between the party and key swing voters. And Sunak is responsible for delivering a level of buffoonery that we really didn't think possible, even after Johnson and Truss. But there's a warning here as well for the rest of us. The Tories are completely lost and they will be beaten, but not as badly as could otherwise be the case. There are millions of people who are just hardwired to vote Conservative. And they're not really paying attention to all this. We're looking at this election campaign unfolding, thinking, what's going on? Most people don't really pay attention to political news. It's rubbish. They don't like it. There are extra difficulties for pollsters this year in order to make sure that the Tories do not continue to poison our politics, which they can still do in opposition if there's enough of them. They need to be crushed, which means tactical voting for those who are prepared to do so. So stopthetories.vote. Make sure you've got it bookmarked. Sign up for the newsletters if you're happy to do that. The advice isn't there yet on who to vote tactically for, but most of it will be hopefully by the end of the week. The sudden announcement caught everyone by surprise. Some places are tricky because it's not clear which of the candidates should be the tactical vote. So more data is needed, but the tougher calls will be made nearer the election. But the other thing I'd suggest is not just to make sure you're in a position to vote, make sure you're registered. If you're going to do it in person, voter ID. If you're not going to do it in person, sort out your postal voting. But you probably know some people who are eligible to vote, but probably won't vote. Encourage them. Encourage them to register, first of all, and get them to do postal voting. You get the form for them, just let them fill it in. You mail it for them. Make it easy. Okay, just make it as easy as possible. When the ballot arrives, like 2 weeks before the election, just say to them, has your ballot arrived yet? Oh, yeah, it happened. Fill it in. I'll come round tomorrow and I'll post it for you. You know, just make it easy. Direct them to stopthetories.vote site, preferably. Because at the end of the day, if they're not going to vote, then they're probably not that bothered who they vote for. So just say, stopthetories.vote. Why don't you just have a little look at that? And then offer to post it once they've sealed it in the envelope. Make it as easy as possible. You probably know a few non-voters that you can persuade to vote. The Tories do not deserve to win a single seat after what they've done and what they're proposing to do. Do not forget about what they're proposing to do. But to make it happen, we need to do something different, because otherwise, you know, we're just going to end up with a 1997 style loss for the Tories. It may be worse. I think it will be worse than that. They could be lucky to get 100 seats, but even that puts them in second place. What we want is Canada 1993. You know, after 5 days of the campaign, the Conservatives are close to full meltdown. Imagine what they're going to be like after another couple of weeks. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.